Hello there and welcome to Bringing Out Their Best, the podcast for teachers of dance, drama and music. My name is Sarah Marshall from Performing Arts PD. Each week I will bring you a snippet of research or an interview with another performing arts educator to energise and inspire you for your working week. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Eora Nation on which I live and work. I pay my respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders past and present. Overthinking? Have you ever been concentrating so hard on the mechanics of a task that your body was literally tripping over itself and completely uncooperative? Have you also found that as you grew in your accomplishment, that this problem was less common? Today's episode looks at the difference between amateurs' susceptibility to overthinking versus professionals who do it much more rarely. Can amateurs be taught to think like experts? Anyone who has ever learned a skill, be it riding a bicycle, driving a car, multiplying fractions, playing an instrument, or learning to samba, knows that with time it becomes easier. As you gain competence, the cognitive load decreases, requiring less concentration to do the same task you performed a year before. This phenomenon allows you to build on your skill base and accomplish more challenging manoeuvres until these too become second nature and you can step it up again. So what is happening here at a neural level? As we become more practiced in a skill, our brains become more efficient, using different brain regions to execute the same task. For example, when looking at neural pathways of novice golfers, they found that the areas of the brain critical for learning were far more activated than those of expert golfers. Similarly, in the neural networks of archers, novices were more prone to distraction and had greater frontal cortical activity than professionals. The parts of the brain lit up in amateurs is associated with emotional self-regulation and self-awareness, but not for the experts whose neural activities' use of different regions assisted them to be more focused and efficient, much less susceptible to distraction or overthinking. So, in summary, novices' prefrontal cortex was more active than the professionals. As this area is responsible for social behaviour, complex cognitive behaviour, personality expression, and decision-making, it meant that the novices were more susceptible to distraction and overthinking than the professionals whose prefrontal cortex was less activated. I have looked to see if there were any studies on performing artists' brains as they performed and grew in skill acquisition, but I only found a slightly disturbing study on subjects who played their musical instruments whilst having brain surgery, a situation most of our students don't find themselves in, perhaps a study for another episode. Anyway, these changes to neural pathways and brain regions got me thinking about how experts focus on a task versus the way novices do. And I wondered if there were any shortcuts for amateurs to achieve less prefrontal cortex activation and greater neural efficiency by thinking as an expert. To understand what I mean, there was a recent study of professional versus amateur golfers. They were asked to verbalise their thought processes as they approached the green and again when they were lining up their shot. The difference between the two groups was negligible when approaching the green, but when lining up the shot, the professionals' statements were outcome-focused, whilst the amateurs were more descriptive of technical execution. In other words, had they been imaging their brains, they would have seen more activity in the prefrontal cortex of the amateurs and much less in the professionals. So then I went looking to see if there was a study that asked amateurs to think like professionals and to find out if that made a difference. So again, I couldn't find anything performing arts related, but I did find a study with basketballers. In this case, they tested the effectiveness of external focused training, so outcome focused, versus internal focus training, so a technical execution training, and then measured the improvement on their accuracy of free throws. The study included players between the ages of 18 to 26 with similar levels of experience. So, unlike the golfing experiment, this study compared like players with like, not novices versus experts. And whilst all players had 10 years plus experience of playing basketball, they were all amateurs. But what was interesting was that the group of players who were in the external focus training group, so they were outcome focused on getting that ball in the hoop, they improved their free throwing more quickly than those in the internal focus group, who were focused on technical execution, the mechanics of improving their free throw. Now, I recognise that these studies are only single events with small groups and not from the performing arts. However, there were several things here that resonated with my experience as a performing arts teacher. So maybe next time we are trying to improve the performance of a student, instead of offering suggestions based on technical improvements, perhaps we would be better off suggesting an outcome we are looking for, in the hope that this type of thinking will decrease the risk of self-consciousness and distraction that leads to overthinking. Some of you may have been doing this for years, but isn't it nice to know that at last science has caught up with us and is justifying what you have known for decades? The caveat here is that if the skill isn't sufficiently embedded, it may all come unstuck as the student's prefrontal cortex needs to remain involved for the learning. You can't dance if you don't know how to walk. I look forward to hearing of your experiences in this area. If you'd like to learn more about how to help your advanced students accelerate their performance journey, take a look at Promoting Performance Excellence at performingartspd.com. My name is Sarah Marshall. Thank you for listening today. I hope you have a fabulous week helping your students to bring out their best.